What if I told you that the howling you hear echoing through Skyrim's forests isn't just wind through the pines, but the call of an ancient curse, older than the Nordic kingdoms themselves? The werewolves of Tamriel aren't mere beasts driven by hunger. They're the remnants of a divine blessing twisted into something darker. A gift that demands blood as payment for its power. The lycanthropic bloodlines that prowl Skyrim's wilderness carry within them the essence of Hircine himself. And their story begins not with a bite, but with a hunt that shook the very foundations of oblivion. Long before the first werewolf ever transformed under Skyrim's twin moons, there was Vicosa, the Ascendant, a huntress whose skills surpassed even the most legendary Nordic warriors. In the early First Era, when the world was young and the barriers between Mundus and Oblivion were thin, she made a bargain that would echo through millennia. Hircine, the Daedric prince of the hunt, had grown bored with mortal prey. Their predictable patterns, their limited endurance, their inevitable surrender to death made them poor sport for a being who existed for the thrill of pursuit. Vicosa offered herself as the perfect quarry. Not just another mortal to be hunted, but a warrior who could provide eternal entertainment. The bargain seemed simple. She would become his greatest prey, and in return, she would be granted the power to never truly die. But Hircine's gifts always come with teeth. The transformation he bestowed upon her wasn't just physical. It rewrote her very essence, binding her soul to the hunting grounds, while leaving her body to prowl the mortal realm. The first transformation occurred during the wild hunt of the Bone Moon, a celestial event that occurs once every 127 years, when both of Nirn's moons align with Hircine's own realm. Vicosa's bones cracked and reformed as her spine elongated. Her ribcage expanded to accommodate a larger heart pumping with supernatural vigor. Her skull reshaped itself, the jaw extending into a muzzle, filled with teeth designed for tearing flesh from bone. But most horrifying of all was her awareness throughout the process. Unlike the mindless beasts of legend, she retained her consciousness, feeling every muscle fiber split and knit together anew. This retention of self became the defining characteristic of true lycanthropes. They aren't mindless monsters, but enhanced predators with human cunning wrapped in bestial power. Vicosa's first hunt as a werewolf lasted 3 days and nights, during which she pursued a pack of ice wolves through the Pale, learning to navigate her new form. When she finally returned to her human shape, she discovered the terrible price of her bargain. The hunger never left. Even in human form, she could smell the blood flowing through every living creature within miles, hear heartbeats like thunder in her ears. Her progeny, the first generation of werewolves, were created not through bites, but through ritual transformation. Vicosa selected warriors who had proven themselves worthy in combat, subjecting them to the rite of the blood moon. This ceremony required the candidate to track and kill a specific target chosen by Hircine himself. Sometimes a legendary beast, sometimes a fellow warrior, sometimes their own family member. Only those who completed the hunt without hesitation received the gift. The ritual itself took place in sacred groves where the veil between worlds was thin. Ancient stone circles throughout Skyrim mark these locations, their surfaces still stained with the blood of countless initiations. The candidate would kneel at the circle's center, while Vycosa carved runes into their flesh with claws dipped in moon sugar and troll fat. As their blood mixed with the sacred earth, Hircine's essence would flow into them, rewriting their mortal limitations. But lycanthropy spread beyond these controlled rituals. As Vycosa's bloodline grew, some werewolves began creating new lycanthropes through bites during combat. These wild transformations lacked the careful preparation of the original rituals, resulting in werewolves with less control over their transformations and shorter lifespans. The distinction between ritual-born and bite-born werewolves created a hierarchy that persists to this day, with the former looking down upon the latter as inferior specimens. The curse manifested differently in each bloodline. Some werewolves retained human intelligence while transformed, able to use weapons and tactics. Others became pure beasts, their human consciousness submerged beneath predatory instincts. The most feared were those who found balance, creatures who could think like humans, but acted with bestial ruthlessness. These lycanthropes became the ancestors of Skyrim's most dangerous packs, combining human cunning with supernatural strength. Hircine's influence extended beyond the physical transformation. Werewolves found themselves drawn to specific hunting grounds, territories that resonated with their lupine nature. The forests around Riften became a favorite haunt, where the combination of thick woodlands and abundant wildlife created perfect conditions for the hunt. The marshlands of Hjalmarch provided different challenges, teaching werewolves to adapt their hunting strategies to wetland environments. The connection to Hircine's realm grew stronger with each transformation. Veteran werewolves reported dreams of running through endless forests, where the sky burned red and the prey never tired. These visions weren't mere fantasies, but glimpses of the hunting grounds, where their souls would spend eternity after death. Some werewolves embraced this fate, viewing it as the ultimate hunt. Others feared it, knowing that an eternity of pursuit might eventually drive even the strongest mind to madness. What Hircine hadn't anticipated was how quickly lycanthropy would evolve beyond his control. The curse began manifesting in unexpected ways. Some werewolves developed immunity to silver, while others gained the ability to transform partially, growing claws and fangs while retaining human form. These mutations spread through bloodlines, like ripples in a pond, creating dozens of distinct lycanthropic variants across Tamriel. By the time the Nordic kingdoms consolidated into Skyrim, werewolves had woven themselves into the fabric of the land. They served as scouts during wars, their enhanced senses making them invaluable for reconnaissance. Some became guardians of sacred sites, their immortal lifespans ensuring continuous protection across generations. Others turned to darker purposes, founding cults that worshipped Hircine through increasingly elaborate blood rituals. The most successful werewolves learned to hide in plain sight. They established themselves as prominent members of society. Jarls, merchants, priests, using their positions to protect their packed territories and hunting grounds. This integration created a shadow society within Nordic culture, where lycanthropes influenced politics and trade while maintaining their predatory nature. The careful balance between civilization and savagery became the defining characteristic of Skyrim's werewolf population. Yet for all their adaptability, werewolves remained bound by the fundamental nature of their curse. They were predators in a world increasingly dominated by civilization, forced to hunt in secret while their prey grew more organized and better armed. The ancient pacts between man and beast began to fray as cities expanded and wilderness shrank. This tension would eventually explode into open conflict, but not before the werewolves established strongholds that would endure for millennia. The transformation from human to werewolf isn't instantaneous. It unfolds in 3 distinct stages, each more harrowing than the last. Understanding these phases is crucial for anyone seeking to identify lycanthropes, or, gods forbid, experiencing the change themselves. The process varies depending on the strength of the bloodline and the circumstances of infection. But certain patterns remain consistent across all documented cases. The first stage, known as the calling, typically begins within hours of exposure to lycanthropic blood. Victims report an overwhelming sense of restlessness, as if their skin has become too small for their bodies. Their senses sharpen dramatically. Colors become more vivid. Sounds carry further. And smells gain emotional weight. A merchant's account from Whiterun describes being able to identify individual customers by scent alone, distinguishing their moods, recent meals, even their fears. This heightened awareness proves both blessing and curse, as the newly sensitive perceive threats everywhere. Physical changes accompany the sensory enhancement. Body temperature rises several degrees, causing profuse sweating despite feeling cold. Muscles ache constantly as they begin restructuring themselves for the transformation to come. Hair grows at an accelerated rate, and fingernails thicken into claw-like points that must be filed daily to avoid suspicion. Most disturbing are the dietary changes. Previously appetizing foods become repulsive. while the scent of fresh meat triggers intense cravings that no amount of cooked flesh can satisfy. The emotional impact during this stage cannot be understated. Victims describe feeling disconnected from their human relationships, as if viewing former friends and family through a predator's eyes. A guard from Solitude wrote in his journal about struggling not to track his wife's movements through their home, noting how she would make an easy target if he chose to hunt her. These intrusive thoughts horrify most victims, but some find them strangely comforting, as if finally understanding their true nature. Sleep becomes impossible during the calling. When victims attempt to rest, they experience vivid dreams of running through endless forests on 4 legs. Their human consciousness riding along as passenger to an alien mind. These visions intensify each night until the boundary between dream and waking blurs. Many victims report getting out of bed to find dirt under their fingernails and leaves in their hair, with no memory of how they got there. The second stage, the hunger, marks the point of no return. The constant aching in the muscles becomes violent spasms as bones begin their preliminary reshaping. The spine curves subtly, forcing victims to adopt a more forward-leaning posture. Their jaw aches constantly as new teeth push through the gums, while existing teeth sharpen into points. These changes are still subtle enough to hide from casual observers, but close examination reveals the truth. Dietary needs become impossible to ignore during the hunger. Cooked meat loses all appeal, while the smell of blood triggers overwhelming compulsions. Victims begin seeking raw flesh, often starting with animals they can plausibly claim to be preparing for cooking. A farm wife near Riverwood documented her transformation, describing how she began by tasting raw meat while preparing meals, then secretly devouring entire raw chickens in her cellar. The satisfaction from these feeding sessions proved temporary, lasting only hours before the hunger returned, stronger than before. The psychological transformation accelerates during this stage. Human social bonds continue weakening, while pack instincts emerge. Victims find themselves drawn to others, experiencing similar changes, able to identify fellow lycanthropes by scent alone. These gatherings rarely remain secret for long, as the group's collective predatory energy often triggers premature transformations or violent incidents that expose them all. Combat abilities manifest unpredictably during the hunger. Some victims discover inhuman strength when threatened, while others develop supernatural speed or enhanced durability. These abilities prove difficult to control, leading to accidents where doors are torn from hinges or furniture is shattered by seemingly gentle contact. Victims learn to isolate themselves, to avoid revealing their condition, often abandoning their regular lives entirely. The third and final stage, the hunt, completes the transformation in a single night of terror and ecstasy. Unlike the gradual changes of previous stages, this metamorphosis is violent and absolute. The victim's human form literally tears itself apart and rebuilds into something new. Witnesses describe hearing bones crack like breaking wood, muscles tearing with wet, ripping sounds, and screams that transition from human to bestial over the course of hours. The physical changes are grotesque in their intensity. The spine extends and curves into a lupine configuration, forcing the victim onto all fours as their legs reshape themselves. The rib cage expands to accommodate a larger heart and lungs, while the skull elongates into a muzzle filled with predatory teeth. Skin tears as new muscle mass forces its way through, leaving bloody furrows that heal instantly, only to tear again as the growth continues. Most terrifying is the victim's consciousness throughout the process. Unlike the merciful oblivion of unconsciousness, they remain awake for every moment, feeling their humanity literally ripped away and replaced with something alien, yet familiar. A captured journal from a Dawn Star merchant describes the sensation as being devoured by myself, as their human identity was consumed by an emerging predatory consciousness. The first transformation typically lasts between 4 and 8 hours, during which the victim experiences their new senses with overwhelming intensity. Every sound becomes a symphony. Every scent tells a story, and every heartbeat within miles drums like thunder in their ears. The urge to hunt dominates all other thoughts, driving the newly transformed werewolf to seek prey with single-minded determination. Recovery from the initial transformation varies wildly. Some werewolves remember every detail of their first hunt, while others recall only fragments or nothing at all. The level of control they retain in subsequent transformations depends largely on the strength of their human will and the circumstances of their infection. Those bitten by powerful werewolves often develop greater control faster, while victims of weak or diseased lycanthropes may never fully master their bestial nature. The curse establishes permanent changes that persist even in human form. Enhanced senses never fully return to human levels, leaving all werewolves with superhuman awareness of their surroundings. Physical abilities increase across the board. Strength, speed, and endurance all improve dramatically. Most significantly, the aging process virtually stops, granting centuries of life to those who survive the initial transformation and its immediate aftermath. But these gifts come with prices that many discover too late. Silver causes burning pain even in human form, while certain herbs and blessed items trigger violent allergic reactions. The hunger never fully disappears, creating a constant, low-level craving for fresh meat that can explode into overwhelming compulsion during times of stress or injury. Most challenging of all is the monthly pull of the full moon, when the transformation becomes involuntary for all but the most experienced lycanthropes. The social consequences prove equally challenging. Maintaining human relationships becomes nearly impossible, as the werewolf's predatory instincts constantly evaluate friends and family as potential prey. Even the strongest emotional bonds struggle against the fundamental change in the lycanthrope's nature. This isolation drives many werewolves to seek out packs, trading human connections for the understanding of others who share their curse. Understanding these stages helps explain why lycanthropy spreads so effectively despite its horrific nature. Each stage offers benefits that can seem worth the costs to those experiencing them. The enhanced awareness of the calling provides advantages in combat and survival. The strength gained during the hunger makes previously impossible tasks effortless. By the time victims reach the hunt, they've experienced enough of lycanthropy's power that many no longer want to resist, even if they could. The tragedy lies not in the transformation itself, but in the loss of choice it represents. Once the process begins, no known force can stop it. Victims can only ride the wave of change and hope they retain enough humanity to function in civilized society. Those who fail become the feral werewolves that terrorize Skyrim's wilderness, while those who succeed join the shadow society of lycanthropes that influences the province from within. This progression explains why the companions watch so carefully for signs of lycanthropism in potential members. They've seen too many promising warriors destroyed by the curse's inexorable advance, and they know that early intervention offers the only chance of creating functional werewolf members rather than mindless beasts. Their experience managing the transformation process has made them Skyrim's most knowledgeable authority on lycanthropy, though they share their secrets with no one outside their inner circle. The werewolf packs of Skyrim operate under a complex social structure that mirrors both wolf behavior and Nordic clan traditions. Unlike vampires, who organize around ancient bloodlines, lycanthropes form bonds based on territory, hunting prowess, and pack dynamics that can shift rapidly based on changing circumstances. Understanding these hierarchies is crucial for anyone seeking to negotiate with werewolf factions or avoid accidentally triggering territorial disputes. At the apex of each pack stands the Alpha, a position earned through combat prowess, hunting skill, and the ability to maintain pack unity. Unlike mortal leadership roles that can be inherited or purchased, becoming an alpha requires proving superiority through direct confrontation with the current leader. These challenges follow ritualized patterns that prevent most conflicts from ending in death, though serious injuries are common. The defeated alpha typically retains a position of respect within the pack, serving as an advisor to their successor. The selection of an alpha involves more than simple combat ability. Pack members evaluate candidates based on their hunting success, their ability to navigate human society while maintaining their lycanthropic nature, and their skill at resolving disputes between pack members. An alpha who focuses solely on dominance without considering the pack's long-term survival will find themselves challenged repeatedly until a more suitable leader emerges. Beneath the alpha, the pack structure divides into several specialized roles. The beta serves as second in command and potential successor, handling day-to-day pack management and coordinating hunts. This position requires diplomatic skills as much as strength, since betas often mediate between conflicting pack members. Most successful alphas develop close working relationships with their betas, creating leadership teams that can adapt to changing circumstances. The stalkers form the pack's intelligence network, using their human identities to gather information about potential threats, hunting opportunities, and territorial changes. These werewolves often maintain prominent positions in human society. Guards, merchants, or bureaucrats that provide access to information other pack members cannot obtain. Their dual lives require exceptional self-control, as any exposure would compromise not just themselves, but their entire pack. Hunters make up the largest portion of most packs, responsible for providing food and defending territory. They vary widely in experience and ability, from recently transformed lycanthropes still learning to control their powers, to centuries-old werewolves whose hunting skills border on supernatural. The pack's hunting success depends on their ability to work together, combining individual strengths into coordinated efforts that can take down prey much larger than any single werewolf could handle. The most specialized role belongs to the shamans, werewolves who maintain connections to Hircine and the spiritual aspects of lycanthropy. These individuals often possess knowledge of ancient rituals, transformation techniques, and the location of sacred sites throughout Skyrim. Their small numbers make them incredibly valuable to their packs, as they provide the only reliable means of communication with their Daedric patron, and access to lycanthropic abilities beyond simple transformation. Pack territories in Skyrim reflect both practical considerations and ancient claims that stretch back centuries. The most desirable hunting grounds combine abundant wildlife, minimal human interference, and defensible positions that allow packs to retreat from organized threats. The forests around Riften have supported werewolf populations since the First Era, their dense woodlands and complex cave systems providing perfect conditions for lycanthropic society. Territorial boundaries follow patterns invisible to most humans, but crystal clear to werewolf senses. Scent markers, claw marks on trees, and subtle arrangements of stones communicate pack claims, hunting schedules, and alliance agreements to any lycanthrope with the knowledge to read them. These boundaries shift seasonally as prey migrations and human activity patterns change, requiring constant negotiation between neighboring packs. The pack's human members, those mortals who serve werewolves without being transformed themselves, occupy a precarious position within this structure. Some serve willingly, drawn by the promise of protection or the thrill of associating with supernatural predators. Others become thralls through intimidation or supernatural compulsion, their free will eroded by exposure to lycanthropic pheromones and pack psychology. These humans handle tasks that would expose transformed members, such as purchasing supplies in towns or disposing of evidence from hunts. Conflicts between packs follow established patterns designed to minimize casualties while determining territorial disputes. Formal challenges involve ritual combat between chosen champions, with the outcome determining hunting rights or territorial boundaries. These fights rarely end in death, as both sides recognize the value of experienced werewolves to their species' long-term survival. More serious disputes may escalate to pack wars, but these are rare and typically result from fundamental disagreements about how to interact with human society. Inter-pack marriages occur frequently, serving both to strengthen alliances and introduce new bloodlines into established packs. These unions require careful negotiation, as werewolves from different packs may have incompatible hunting styles or territorial instincts. Successful marriages often result in the founding of new packs, as the combined couple establishes their own territory rather than trying to integrate into existing hierarchies. The relationship between pack werewolves and lone lycanthropes creates ongoing tensions throughout Skyrim's wilderness. Solitary werewolves often result from pack conflicts, exile for breaking pack laws, or personal choice by lycanthropes who prefer independence to group dynamics. Packs view these individuals with suspicion, seeing them as potential threats to territorial stability or sources of exposure that could bring human hunters down on all lycanthropes in the region. Communication between packs occurs through a network of mutual meeting grounds, ancient sites that no single pack can claim, but all recognize as necessary for inter-pack relations. These locations host seasonal gatherings where packs exchange information, resolve disputes, and coordinate responses to external threats. The most important of these sites lies beneath the ancient Nordic ruins of Glenmoril Coven, where the deepest caves connect to natural chambers that have hosted werewolf councils for millennia. Pack law varies between groups, but generally emphasizes survival above all other considerations. exposing the pack's lycanthropic nature to humans carries severe penalties, typically exile or death, depending on the severity of the breach. Attacking pack members outside of formal challenges is forbidden, though the definition of attack can be interpreted flexibly during internal disputes. Most packs maintain strict hunting quotas to prevent overexploitation of their territory's prey animals, recognizing that environmental collapse would doom them all. The pack's relationship with human society reflects a careful balance between predation and coexistence. Smart packs cultivate useful contacts within human communities, establishing relationships with corrupt officials, desperate merchants, or individuals whose disappearance would not be investigated thoroughly. These connections provide early warnings about hunting expeditions, information about valuable targets, and assistance with covering up lycanthropic activities. Modern pack structures have adapted to Skyrim's changing political landscape, with some werewolves infiltrating the Civil War factions to influence the conflict's outcome in their favor. Both Imperial and Stormcloak forces unknowingly include lycanthropes in their ranks, creating opportunities for pack members to eliminate enemies, protect allies, and gather intelligence that helps their packs avoid military operations in their territories. This infiltration represents the evolution of werewolf society from purely predatory to strategically adaptive, ensuring their continued survival in an increasingly complex world. While most werewolves organize into packs, Skyrim's most infamous lycanthropes belong to an organization that transcends simple territorial boundaries, the Companions of Jorrvaskr. This legendary warrior guild has shaped Nordic culture for centuries. Their reputation, built on martial prowess and unwavering courage. What few outsiders realize is that their greatest warriors carry within them the blessing and curse of the beast blood, transforming them into living legends whose howls echo through Whiterun's training yards. The Companions' relationship with lycanthropy begins with their founder, Ysgramor himself, though the truth of this connection remains buried beneath layers of myth and deliberate obfuscation. Ancient texts suggest that Ysgramor's legendary strength came not from divine blessing, but from a pact with Hircine, exchanged for the power needed to lead his people to Tamriel. His axe, Wuthrad, allegedly thirsted for more than just elven blood. It craved the hunt itself, drawing its wielder into deeper communion with the Daedric Prince of Predators. The 500 companions who followed Ysgramor included several who shared his lycanthropic nature, though their transformation came through ritual rather than bite. These first werewolf companions established the traditions that would guide the organization for millennia, blending Nordic warrior culture with the pack dynamics of their bestial nature. Their success in battle stemmed not just from superior training, but from supernatural abilities that made them nearly invincible against mortal opponents. Kodlak Whitemane's relationship with the Beast Blood exemplifies the complex emotions werewolf companions experience regarding their condition. Unlike younger members who embrace their lycanthropic power, Kodlak spent his final years seeking a cure, viewing his transformation as a barrier to reaching Sovngarde after death. His fears weren't unfounded. Werewolf souls are claimed by Hersine's hunting grounds, rather than following traditional Nordic afterlife paths, creating an existential crisis for warriors raised to believe in honor-based immortality. The Circle, the Companions' inner leadership group, consists entirely of werewolves who have mastered their transformation while maintaining their human identities. Ayla, the Huntress, represents the other extreme from Kodlak, embracing her lycanthropic nature so completely that she views her human form as the limitation rather than the default state. Her hunting skills border on supernatural, combining centuries of experience with enhanced senses that make her one of Skyrim's most feared predators. Vilkas and Farkas exemplify the different ways lycanthropy manifests within the same bloodline. Both brothers received the beast blood through the same ritual, but their personalities shaped how the curse expressed itself. Vilkas maintains strict control over his transformation, using his werewolf abilities tactically during combat, while preserving his scholarly interests and tactical mind. Farkas, by contrast, allows his bestial nature to influence his approach to life, thinking in more straightforward terms, but achieving devastating effectiveness in battle. The ritual transformation of new Circle members follows traditions established in the First Era, requiring candidates to prove their worthiness through increasingly difficult trials. The process begins with tracking and slaying a specific target chosen by the existing Circle members. Sometimes a legendary beast, sometimes a dangerous criminal, occasionally a test of loyalty that requires eliminating former allies. Only warriors who complete these hunts without hesitation or mercy earn the right to join the inner circle. The actual transformation ritual occurs in the depths beneath Jorvaskr, in chambers carved from living rock that predate the mead hall above. Ancient Nordic runes cover the walls, their meanings lost to time, but their power still palpable to those sensitive to lycanthropic energies. The candidate drinks from a cup filled with the mixed blood of all existing Circle members, creating a bond that transcends simple pack loyalty. This communion ensures that new werewolf companions share not just the curse, but the accumulated wisdom and instincts of generations of lycanthropic warriors. The companions' public reputation provides perfect cover for their lycanthropic activities. Their fame as warriors explains their superior combat abilities, while their dedication to honor and justice deflects suspicion about their true nature. Most citizens of Whiterun view them as noble protectors, never suspecting that their guardians transform into apex predators under the full moon. This carefully maintained deception allows the companions to operate openly while keeping their greatest secret hidden. Their hunting grounds extend far beyond Whiterun Hold, encompassing territories that the companions have claimed through centuries of successful hunts. These areas include remote forests, where they can transform safely, mountain valleys rich with wildlife, and ancient ruins that serve as gathering places for lycanthropic rituals. The network of safe houses and supply caches maintained throughout these regions rivals anything established by major trading companies, providing the infrastructure necessary for extended hunts far from civilization. The relationship between werewolf companions and their human members creates complex dynamics within the organization. New recruits often sense something different about the circle members, without being able to identify exactly what sets them apart. The enhanced senses, subtle physical changes, and predatory awareness of experienced werewolves make them formidable trainers, but also somewhat intimidating mentors. Many promising warriors leave the companions after brief exposure to the circle, sensing dangers they cannot articulate. The companions' involvement in Skyrim's civil war demonstrates how lycanthropic abilities translate to large-scale warfare. While officially neutral, individual members often aid whichever faction aligns with their personal beliefs, bringing supernatural combat abilities to bear on conflicts that shape the province's future. Their enhanced senses make them invaluable scouts. Their superhuman endurance allows them to fight battles that would exhaust normal soldiers, and their regenerative abilities let them survive wounds that would cripple or kill mortal warriors. Training new werewolf companions requires balancing their human warrior traditions with their lycanthropic nature. Veterans teach recruits to use their enhanced abilities subtly, avoiding displays of superhuman strength or speed that might expose their true nature. They learn to hunt efficiently, without leaving evidence that would attract unwanted attention, and to transform only when absolutely necessary, or during carefully planned group hunts in secure territories. The companions' relationship with other werewolf packs throughout Skyrim ranges from cooperative to competitive, depending on territorial concerns and philosophical differences. Some packs view the companions as sellouts who have compromised their lycanthropic nature for human acceptance, while others respect their success at maintaining influence within mortal society. These relationships shift based on changing circumstances and leadership within both the companions and independent packs. Their greatest challenge comes from managing the inherent conflict between their public service mission and their predatory nature. Werewolf companions must resist the urge to hunt the citizens they've sworn to protect, finding outlets for their lycanthropic needs that don't compromise their reputation or endanger innocence. This often means traveling to remote regions for hunting expeditions, targeting bandits and monsters whose disappearance serves the greater good, or participating in underground fighting competitions where their abilities can be expressed safely. The knowledge accumulated by generations of werewolf companions represents one of Tamriel's most comprehensive collections of lycanthropic lore. Their libraries contain records of transformation techniques, territorial maps, bloodline histories, and ritual practices that would be invaluable to scholars studying lycanthropy. However, this information remains closely guarded, shared only among circle members, and never committed to writing in forms that outsiders could decipher. The oral traditions maintained by the companions preserve secrets that other werewolf packs have forgotten or never learned. As Skyrim enters a new era of uncertainty, the companions face choices that will determine their organization's future. The death of Kodlak Whitemane removed their most experienced leader and moral compass, leaving younger werewolves to navigate increasingly complex political and social landscapes. Their decisions about embracing or rejecting their lycanthropic nature will influence not just their own fate, but the broader relationship between werewolves and human society throughout the province. The beast blood that made them legendary warriors may ultimately determine whether they survive as protectors of Skyrim or fade into the same mythological status as their founder. The transformation from human to werewolf doesn't end with the initial change. Lycanthropy continues evolving throughout a werewolf's extended lifespan, with abilities and characteristics that develop over decades or centuries of existence. Understanding these progression stages helps explain why ancient werewolves command such respect and fear from both their own kind and the humans unfortunate enough to encounter them in their territories. Newly transformed werewolves, those who have undergone the change within their first decade, retain the most human characteristics while struggling to control their bestial impulses. Their transformations remain largely involuntary, triggered by strong emotions, the full moon, or exposure to blood. During their first few years, these lycanthropes often transform accidentally, leading to damaged property, injured bystanders, or worse. If they lack proper guidance from experienced pack members, the physical capabilities of novice werewolves exceed human limits, but pale compared to their eventual potential. Their strength increases approximately threefold over human baseline. Their speed doubles, and their senses sharpen to superhuman levels. However, they lack the fine control that allows experienced lycanthropes to use these abilities effectively. A novice werewolf might accidentally crush objects they intend to handle gently, or find themselves overwhelmed by sensory input during their first transformations. The psychological adaptation proves equally challenging. New werewolves must reconcile their human identity with predatory instincts that view former friends and family as potential prey. Many struggle with guilt over their transformed nature, leading to isolation, depression, or reckless behavior that threatens pack security. The most successful novices are those who accept guidance from pack elders and gradually learn to integrate their dual natures rather than viewing them as incompatible opposites. After approximately a decade of lycanthropic existence, werewolves enter the mature phase, where their abilities stabilize and they gain conscious control over their transformations. These lycanthropes can shift between human and wolf form at will, maintaining their human consciousness during transformation while accessing the full range of their supernatural abilities. Their physical capabilities continue improving, with strength reaching 5 times human levels and speed that allows them to outrun horses over short distances. Mature werewolves develop specialized abilities based on their individual inclinations and pack roles. Hunters might gain enhanced tracking capabilities that allow them to follow week-old trails, while warriors could develop increased regeneration that heals serious wounds within minutes. Some manifest unusual talents like partial transformation, growing claws and fangs while retaining human form, or the ability to sense other lycanthropes from great distances. The social position of mature werewolves within pack hierarchies reflects their increased capabilities and accumulated experience. Most pack leaders come from this group, as they possess the combination of power and control necessary to maintain pack unity while navigating the complex relationships between lycanthropic society and the human world. Their decades of experience help them avoid the mistakes that destroy younger werewolves and threaten pack security. Ancient werewolves, those who have survived more than a century of lycanthropic existence, represent the apex of lycanthropic evolution. These individuals have transcended many of the limitations that constrain younger lycanthropes, developing abilities that border on the supernatural, even by werewolf standards. Their transformation becomes so complete that the distinction between human and beast form blurs, with some ancient lycanthropes maintaining aspects of both simultaneously. The physical capabilities of ancient werewolves defy easy classification. Strength can reach 10 times human levels or higher. Speed that creates afterimages, and regeneration so rapid that severed limbs regrow within hours. Their senses extend beyond the physical realm, allowing them to detect magical auras, sense emotional states in other beings, or track targets across vast distances by following metaphysical trails, invisible to lesser lycanthropes. Most impressive are the unique abilities that ancient werewolves developed through centuries of existence. Some can communicate with and command normal wolves, creating packs that blend lycanthropes with their natural counterparts. Others develop resistance to silver that renders most weapons ineffective against them, or the ability to transform others through simple physical contact rather than requiring bites or blood exchange. The psychological evolution of ancient werewolves creates beings that are simultaneously more and less human than their younger counterparts. Centuries of existence provide perspective that transcends petty human concerns, but also distances them from mortal emotions and relationships. Many ancient lycanthropes view humans as a different species entirely, relating to them more as a shepherd might relate to sheep, protective when useful, indifferent when not, and predatory when hungry. The rarest ancient werewolves achieve something approaching transcendence, becoming living bridges between the mortal realm and Hersene's domain. These individuals can manifest aspects of the hunting grounds in physical reality, creating localized areas where the laws of nature bend to accommodate their will. Forests might become eternal twilight, where prey never escapes, or caves that extend infinitely inward for those who enter without the ancient werewolves' permission. The territorial claims of ancient werewolves often span entire regions, with younger packs paying tribute or service in exchange for protection and hunting rights. These arrangements create feudal-like systems where ancient lycanthropes serve as apex predators, overseeing networks of lesser werewolves, normal wolves, and sometimes even human settlements that have learned to coexist with their supernatural neighbors. The relationship between werewolf generations creates complex mentorship hierarchies within pack structures. Ancient werewolves rarely involve themselves in day-to-day pack management, instead serving as advisors and final arbiters for disputes that cannot be resolved at lower levels. Their accumulated wisdom about hunting techniques, territorial management, and survival strategies makes them invaluable resources for younger lycanthropes seeking to advance within pack hierarchies. However, the progression through these stages is neither automatic nor guaranteed. Many werewolves never advance beyond the novice stage, falling victim to hunters, rival lycanthropes, or their own inability to master their bestial nature. Others reach the mature stage, but lack the combination of skill, luck, and wisdom necessary to survive the centuries required for ancient status. The attrition rate explains why ancient werewolves command such respect. They represent not just power, but proof of exceptional survival ability. The curse's evolution within bloodlines creates additional complexity in lycanthropic progression. Children born to werewolf parents often manifest lycanthropic traits earlier and more completely than those infected through bites. These hereditary lycanthropes may skip stages entirely, displaying mature level abilities within their first decade, or developing unique capabilities that don't appear in traditional infection-based werewolves. The most feared evolutionary path produces what scholars term dire werewolves, ancient lycanthropes whose bestial nature has completely overwhelmed their human consciousness. These creatures retain all the supernatural abilities of their age, but lose the restraint and intelligence that allows other ancient werewolves to function within pack society. Dire werewolves become solitary hunters, whose territories become dead zones, avoided by all other lycanthropes, and quickly depopulated of human settlements. Understanding these progression stages helps explain the careful selection processes used by established packs when choosing new members. Experienced werewolves can often predict which candidates will successfully navigate the challenges of lycanthropic existence and which will fall victim to the curse's demands. This predictive ability allows successful packs to maintain their strength across generations while avoiding the risks associated with unstable or unsuitable lycanthropes. The artifacts and relics associated with Skyrim's werewolf population represent more than mere weapons or tools. They are repositories of lycanthropic power that can reshape the very nature of the curse itself. Unlike the elegant enchantments favored by mortal mages, werewolf artifacts derive their power from direct connection to Hircine's realm, making them unpredictable and dangerous even to their intended users. The Ring of Hircine stands as the most infamous lycanthropic artifact in Skyrim. Its crude iron construction, hiding supernatural properties that have influenced werewolf society for millennia. Forged in the hunting grounds, from metal that never knew mortal fire, the ring allows its wearer to control their transformations completely, shifting between human and beast form at will, regardless of lunar phases or emotional states. For werewolves struggling with involuntary changes, this level of control represents the difference between civilized existence and bestial madness. But the ring's power comes with subtle costs that many users discover too late. Extended use creates dependency that goes beyond mere convenience. Werewolves who rely on the ring for transformation control find their natural abilities atrophy, leaving them helpless if the artifact is lost or stolen. More insidiously, the ring slowly alters its wearer's personality, enhancing predatory instincts while diminishing empathy and human connections. Many who wear it for extended periods become increasingly isolated from both human society and their own pack members. The Savior's Hide represents Hircine's gift to mortals who prove themselves worthy opponents in the eternal hunt. This unique armor adapts to its wearer's form, whether human or beast, providing protection that scales with the user's lycanthropic abilities. In human form, it appears as well-crafted leather armor with unusual flexibility and durability. During transformation, it becomes a second skin that enhances the werewolf's natural resilience while maintaining full mobility. What makes the Savior's Hide truly valuable is its resistance to the weapons typically used against lycanthropes. Silver blades slide off its surface without leaving scratches, while blessed weapons lose their supernatural potency when striking it. This protection allows werewolves to confront hunters and rival supernatural creatures with confidence, knowing their most vulnerable moments during transformation are shielded by Hircine's direct intervention. The hide's origins lie in a legendary hunt, where a mortal hunter managed to wound Hircine himself during a particularly challenging pursuit. Rather than destroying the impudent mortal, the Daedric prince was impressed by their skill and determination, skinning his own divine flesh to create armor worthy of such a competitor. The artifact has passed through many hands since then, always finding its way to werewolves who demonstrate exceptional hunting prowess or face seemingly impossible challenges. Lesser known, but equally significant, are the totems of Hircine, ancient carved stones that serve as focal points for lycanthropic rituals and territorial markers. These artifacts appear throughout Skyrim's wilderness, often mistaken for ordinary Nordic standing stones by casual observers. Werewolves recognize them immediately by scent and supernatural resonance, using them as gathering points, transformation sites, and communication hubs for coordinating pack activities. Each totem carries unique properties based on its carved imagery and the rituals performed around it over centuries of use. The Totem of the Hunt enhances tracking abilities and grants temporary speed boosts to werewolves who commune with it properly. The Totem of Terror instills paralyzing fear in enemies while strengthening the werewolf's own courage and aggression. The Totem of Brotherhood creates empathic bonds between pack members, allowing them to sense each other's locations and emotional states across vast distances. The activation of these totems requires specific rituals that vary based on the artifact's nature and the user's intentions. Most involve blood offerings, either from the werewolf themselves or from fresh prey brought to the totem site. The carvings glow with internal light during successful activations, and the effects typically last for one full lunar cycle before requiring renewal. Packs often schedule their major hunts and territorial expansions around these enhancement periods, maximizing their supernatural advantages. Lycanthropic weapons represent a specialized category of artifacts that blur the line between tool and extension of the werewolf's body. These items respond to their wielder's transformation state, becoming more effective when used by lycanthropes in beast form. The most common examples are clawed gauntlets that extend and sharpen when the wearer transforms, effectively giving human form werewolves access to their natural weapons without fully shifting. The blood scythe and soul render, twin weapons associated with lycanthropic champions, demonstrate the pinnacle of werewolf weapon crafting. These curved blades feed on the life force of their victims, channeling absorbed energy back to their wielders as enhanced strength and regeneration. In the hands of a transformed werewolf, they become extensions of the creature's hunting instincts, only shadows melting into darkness, guiding strikes toward vital points and adjusting their weight and balance to match their wielder's combat style. More exotic artifacts include the Howling Stones, crystalline formations that amplify and focus lycanthropic vocalizations into devastating sonic attacks. When a werewolf howls while touching one of these stones, The sound becomes a weapon, capable of shattering bone, inducing paralytic fear, or calling every lycanthrope within 50 miles to the wielder's location. The stone's power scales with the user's age and strength, making them particularly valuable to ancient werewolves seeking to establish dominance over large territories. The Moonwell Chalice serves as both artifact and ritual focus for lycanthropic ceremonies that require communion with Hircine's realm. This ornate silver bowl, paradoxically harmful to werewolves who touch it directly, must be handled with specially prepared wrappings that insulate users from its divine metal construction. When filled with blood under specific lunar conditions, the chalice creates a temporary portal to the hunting grounds, allowing communication with Hircine or transportation of willing participants to his realm. Pack regalia artifacts strengthen bonds between werewolf pack members while marking territorial claims and hierarchy positions. The Alpha's crown, typically a circlet of bone and metal, adorned with trophies from significant hunts, grants its wearer enhanced leadership abilities and the power to enforce pack discipline through supernatural compulsion. Beta collars, worn around the neck in both human and beast form, create communication links between their wearers and the pack alpha, ensuring coordination during complex hunts or territorial disputes. The most dangerous category of lycanthropic artifacts consists of items that can forcibly transform victims into werewolves or enhance the curse's transmission rate. The biting blade contains lycanthropic essence within its metal, infecting anyone cut by its edge with a virulent strain of lycanthropy that progresses through transformation stages at accelerated rates. The corruption amulets project fields of lycanthropic energy that gradually transform nearby humans into werewolves over extended exposure periods, making them useful for packs seeking to expand their numbers without resorting to violent conversion methods. These transformation artifacts represent some of the most closely guarded secrets in werewolf society, as their existence would justify the most extreme measures by hunters and authorities seeking to eliminate lycanthropic threats. Packs possessing such items rarely admit to owning them, and their use is typically reserved for desperate circumstances where the pack's survival depends on rapidly increasing their numbers or eliminating specific threats. The creation of new lycanthropic artifacts requires knowledge and materials that few werewolves possess. The process typically involves ritual forging during specific lunar phases, using metals that have been exposed to lycanthropic blood for extended periods. The creator must maintain beast form throughout the crafting process, imbuing the item with their own supernatural essence while following ancient techniques passed down through oral tradition. Failed attempts often result in cursed items that harm their intended users or create unpredictable magical effects. Understanding these artifacts and their capabilities helps explain the complex relationships between werewolf packs and the broader supernatural community in Skyrim. Vampires seek certain lycanthropic items for their own purposes, while mages study them to understand the fundamental nature of Daedric curses. The competition for these powerful relics drives many conflicts between supernatural factions, as each group recognizes that controlling lycanthropic artifacts means influencing the balance of power throughout the province. The existence of lycanthropic artifacts also creates opportunities for cooperation between werewolves and sympathetic mortals. Scholars, smiths, and enchanters who demonstrate respect for lycanthropic culture and prove their trustworthiness might gain access to these artifacts for study or enhancement. These relationships benefit both parties. Werewolves gain allies who understand their needs and capabilities, while mortals access supernatural knowledge unavailable through conventional means. But the line between ally and threat remains thin when dealing with artifacts of such power. Even well-intentioned mortals can become corrupted by extended exposure to lycanthropic items, developing hunting urges or predatory instincts that put them at odds with their own species. The careful management of these relationships requires constant vigilance from werewolf pack leaders, who must balance the benefits of mortal cooperation against the risks of exposing their society's deepest secrets. While werewolves and vampires share the common bond of supernatural curses that set them apart from mortal society, their relationship throughout Skyrim's history has been characterized by territorial competition, philosophical differences, and outright warfare. These two apex predator species occupy overlapping ecological niches, competing for similar resources while embodying fundamentally different approaches to supernatural existence. The core conflict stems from their contrasting relationships with Hircine and Molag Bal, Daedric princes whose spheres of influence clash as much as their mortal servants do. Hircine values the hunt, the chase, and the natural cycle of predator and prey that maintains balance within the wild. Molag Bal focuses on domination, corruption, and the subversion of natural order to serve his will. These opposing philosophies create fundamental incompatibilities between their respective curses that manifest in violent confrontations whenever werewolves and vampires encounter each other. Physiologically, werewolves and vampires represent different solutions to the problem of mortal limitation. Lycanthropy enhances the body's natural capabilities, turning humans into perfected predators who retain connection to the natural world while gaining supernatural abilities. Vampirism, by contrast, replaces human biology with undead systems that transcend mortal needs but cut the victim off from natural cycles like aging, breathing, and normal sustenance requirements. These biological differences create practical conflicts in shared territories. Werewolves require abundant wildlife to satisfy their hunting instincts and nutritional needs, while vampires deplete human populations that werewolf packs might prefer to manage sustainably for long-term feeding. The vampiric preference for urban environments, where large human populations concentrate, conflicts with werewolf needs for wilderness territories, where they can transform and hunt without detection. Historical records document numerous wars between werewolf packs and vampire covens throughout Skyrim's past. The Blood Moon War of the Second Era saw the Volkihar clan attempting to establish dominance over territories traditionally claimed by lycanthropic packs in the northern reaches of the province. The conflict lasted 3 years and decimated both supernatural populations, only shadows melting into darkness, leaving vast areas depopulated of both human prey and the supernatural predators who fed on them. The tactical approaches employed by each faction during these conflicts reflect their fundamental natures. Werewolf packs rely on coordinated pack hunting, using their enhanced senses and supernatural speed to track vampire movements and launch surprise attacks when their enemies are most vulnerable. Their ability to operate in daylight gives them significant advantages over traditional vampires, allowing them to assault vampire strongholds during hours when their enemies are weakened by solar exposure. Vampires counter with superior individual power, magical abilities, and the political influence they often wield within human society. A single ancient vampire might be more than a match for several werewolves in direct combat, while vampiric mind control abilities allow them to turn human authorities against lycanthropic populations. The vampire practice of creating thralls and dominated servants provides them with disposable forces that can operate during daylight hours when direct vampiric intervention is impossible. The most devastating conflicts occur when the two supernatural factions target each other's support networks rather than engaging in direct confrontation. Werewolves might systematically eliminate vampire thralls and blood sources, starving their enemies into desperate actions that expose them to hunters or rival supernatural predators. Vampires respond by corrupting werewolf pack allies, turning loyal humans into vampire servants, or revealing lycanthropic activities to authorities who organize hunting expeditions. Interestingly, some of the most intense werewolf-vampire conflicts arise from former relationships between specific individuals. Cases exist of werewolves and vampires who maintained romantic relationships despite their supernatural natures, only to have these bonds shattered by the fundamental incompatibilities of their respective curses. The resulting conflicts often escalate beyond personal vendettas, drawing entire packs and covens into wars that last for decades. The rare instances of cooperation between werewolves and vampires typically occur when both factions face external threats that exceed their individual capabilities to handle. The vigilance of Stendarr's crusades against supernatural creatures have occasionally forced temporary alliances between traditional enemies, as both groups recognize that their survival depends on coordinating their defense against mortal hunters. These alliances remain fragile and typically dissolve as soon as the immediate threat passes. More complex relationships develop in areas where werewolf territories border vampire domains, but neither faction has the strength to eliminate the other completely. These regions often develop elaborate protocols for avoiding conflicts, with specific hunting schedules, territorial boundaries, and communication methods that minimize direct contact between the rival supernatural populations. Violation of these agreements typically triggers immediate and brutal retaliation from the offended party. The presence of hybrid beings, individuals who carry both vampiric and lycanthropic curses, represents one of the most dangerous complications in werewolf-vampire relations. These extremely rare creatures combine the worst aspects of both supernatural conditions, while gaining few of the benefits that make either curse bearable. Most hybrids descend into madness within months of their dual transformation, becoming mindless predators that both werewolves and vampires hunt down as abominations. Trade relationships between werewolves and vampires, while uncommon, do exist in certain circumstances. Werewolf packs might exchange information about human population movements, hunter activities, or territorial opportunities in return for vampiric knowledge about magic, politics, or urban infiltration techniques. These exchanges typically occur through neutral intermediaries rather than direct contact, reducing the risk of violence while allowing both factions to benefit from each other's specialized knowledge. The competition for supernatural artifacts creates another source of conflict between werewolves and vampires. Many powerful magical items can benefit either faction, leading to bidding wars, theft attempts, and outright battles for control of particularly valuable relics. The Ring of Hycene, for example, might be coveted by vampires seeking to understand lycanthropic transformation processes, while werewolves might desire vampiric artifacts that could grant them similar immortality without the weaknesses associated with undeath. Religious and philosophical differences add ideological dimensions to the practical conflicts between these supernatural factions. Werewolves often view vampires as perversions of natural order, creatures who have abandoned their connection to life cycles in exchange for parasitic existence. Vampires, conversely, see werewolves as primitive beings who remain bound to animalistic instincts rather than transcending their mortal origins through vampiric evolution. The impact of werewolf-vampire conflicts on Skyrim's broader supernatural ecosystem cannot be understated. Their wars create power vacuums that other supernatural beings move to fill, while their temporary alliances can shift regional balances in ways that affect everything from trade routes to political succession. Human populations caught between these conflicts often suffer disproportionate casualties, as both factions may target mortal communities to deny resources to their enemies. Modern developments in Skyrim's political landscape have created new opportunities for both cooperation and conflict between werewolves and vampires. The Civil War has fragmented traditional authority structures that previously kept both supernatural factions in check, allowing them more freedom to pursue their territorial ambitions. At the same time, the conflict has created chaos that both groups can exploit for their own benefit, potentially leading to new forms of cooperation based on mutual opportunism rather than traditional enmity. The future relationship between werewolves and vampires in Skyrim will likely depend on external pressures and the emergence of new leadership within both supernatural communities. If organizations like the Dawn Guard succeed in eliminating vampire threats, werewolf packs might find themselves inheriting territories and resources previously controlled by their undead rivals. Conversely, if vampiric factions achieve their long-term goals of political dominance, lycanthropes might face systematic persecution. Understanding these complex dynamics helps explain why encounters between werewolves and vampires in Skyrim are rarely straightforward. What appears to be simple territorial disputes often reflect centuries of accumulated grievances, philosophical differences, and practical competition for limited resources. The supernatural politics that govern these relationships operate on timescales that dwarf mortal concerns, creating conflicts that can simmer for decades before erupting into violence that reshapes entire regions of the province. The relationship between werewolves and mortal society in Skyrim represents one of the most complex and dangerous balancing acts in the province's social fabric. Unlike vampires, who often integrate into human communities through deception and manipulation, werewolves must navigate the challenge of maintaining their lycanthropic nature while avoiding the systematic persecution that would result from widespread exposure of their true identity. The Nordic cultural background of most Skyrim werewolves creates unique opportunities and challenges for coexistence with human society. Traditional Nordic values emphasize courage, strength, and martial prowess, qualities that lycanthropes possess in abundance. A werewolf who can control their transformation and channel their supernatural abilities appropriately can achieve significant success within Nordic warrior culture, earning respect and authority that would be impossible for beings perceived as monsters or outsiders. However, the same culture that celebrates martial strength also has deep traditions of monster hunting and protecting communities from supernatural threats. Nordic folklore is filled with tales of heroes who slew dangerous beasts, and werewolves occupy an uncomfortable position as both potential heroes and potential monsters, depending on their behavior and the circumstances of any given encounter. The integration strategies employed by successful werewolf communities demonstrate remarkable sophistication in managing these cultural tensions. Many lycanthropes establish themselves in professions that explain their unusual strength, enhanced senses, and preference for nighttime activities. Blacksmiths, hunters, guards, and soldiers represent common career choices that allow werewolves to use their supernatural abilities while maintaining plausible explanations for their capabilities. The most successful werewolf integration occurs in rural communities where individual relationships and personal reputation matter more than abstract fears about supernatural creatures. A werewolf who consistently protects local farms from bandit raids, helps during harvest seasons, and contributes to community defense will often earn acceptance, even if their true nature becomes suspected or known. These relationships create mutual benefits. The community gains a powerful protector, while the werewolf secures territory and social connections that support their dual existence. Urban environments present different challenges and opportunities for werewolf integration. Cities offer anonymity and diverse populations that make unusual behavior less likely to draw attention. But they also concentrate potential witnesses and authority figures who might investigate supernatural activities. Successful urban werewolves often adopt nocturnal professions like night watchmen, tavern security, or underground fighters, where their enhanced abilities provide clear advantages without raising suspicions about their source. The economic impact of werewolf integration into mortal society extends beyond individual success stories. Lycanthropic abilities make their possessors exceptionally effective at certain types of labor, particularly those requiring strength, endurance, or sensory acuity. Mining operations, logging camps, and hunting expeditions led by werewolves often achieve productivity levels that seem miraculous to outside observers, generating wealth and resources that benefit entire communities. However, this economic integration creates vulnerability as much as opportunity. Communities that become dependent on lycanthropic labor or protection face difficult choices when anti-werewolf sentiment rises or hunting expeditions threaten their supernatural residents. The economic incentives for maintaining werewolf relationships often conflict with religious, legal, or social pressures to conform to broader provincial attitudes towards supernatural creatures. The legal status of werewolves in Skyrim remains deliberately ambiguous, with different holds adopting varying approaches based on their particular circumstances and leadership preferences. Some Jarls maintain unofficial policies of tolerance, as long as lycanthropes avoid causing problems within their territories, while others actively encourage werewolf hunting as a public service. This patchwork of legal approaches creates opportunities for werewolves to migrate toward more accepting regions, while forcing them to remain constantly aware of changing political winds. Religious institutions play complex roles in werewolf-mortal relations, with different divine cults adopting dramatically different approaches to lycanthropic individuals. The Vigilants of Stendar represent the most extreme anti-werewolf position, viewing all lycanthropes as abominations that must be eliminated regardless of their individual behavior or intentions. Their crusading zeal creates constant pressure on werewolf communities and forces lycanthropes to maintain elaborate secrecy measures to avoid persecution. Other religious groups take more nuanced positions. Some temples of Kinnereth recognize lycanthropy as a natural phenomenon that doesn't necessarily conflict with the goddess's fear of nature and wild creatures. Certain Nordic cults maintain ancient traditions that honor the beast spirits that inhabit some werewolves, viewing lycanthropy as a blessing rather than a curse when properly controlled and directed. The generational transmission of lycanthropy creates particularly complex social dynamics when werewolf families attempt to integrate into mortal communities. Children born to lycanthropic parents often manifest their supernatural nature at young ages, requiring careful management to prevent exposure that could endanger the entire family. The challenges of raising lycanthropic children while maintaining human social connections have led some werewolf families to abandon integration attempts entirely, choosing isolation over the constant stress of maintaining dual identities. Educational institutions represent both opportunities and risks for young werewolves seeking to function within mortal society. Schools and apprenticeship programs can provide valuable skills and social connections, but they also create environments where lycanthropic traits are difficult to hide from peers and authority figures. Many werewolf families choose to educate their children privately or within pack structures to avoid these exposure risks. Marriage between werewolves and mortals occurs frequently enough to create established social patterns and cultural expectations within lycanthropic communities. These relationships often begin with the human partner unaware of their spouse's true nature, leading to gradual revelations that test the strength of emotional bonds against fear and social pressure. Successful mixed marriages typically require the human partner to accept some degree of isolation from broader society, as maintaining the secret of their spouse's lycanthropy limits their social interactions and geographical mobility. The offspring of werewolf mortal unions inherit lycanthropic traits with varying intensity and manifestation patterns. Some children develop full lycanthropic abilities, while others gain only enhanced physical capabilities or sensory acuity without the ability to transform. These variations create complex family dynamics and difficult decisions about whether to encourage children's integration into human society or lycanthropic pack structures. Professional relationships between werewolves and mortal specialists create networks of cooperation that benefit both communities while maintaining necessary secrecy. Certain healers, alchemists, and scholars develop expertise in lycanthropic conditions, providing medical care and magical services to werewolf communities in exchange for rare materials, protection services, or access to lycanthropic knowledge. These professional relationships often represent the closest cooperation possible between werewolves and mortals who know their true nature. The impact of werewolf integration on mortal communities varies dramatically based on the number of lycanthropes involved and the success of their concealment efforts. Communities with well-integrated werewolf populations often experience lower crime rates, improved defense against external threats, and economic benefits from lycanthropic contributions. However, communities where werewolf secrecy fails or lycanthropic behavior becomes problematic may face social disruption, economic damage, or violent conflicts that affect generations of residents. Modern developments in Skyrim's political and social landscape have created new challenges and opportunities for werewolf-mortal relations. The Civil War has disrupted traditional authority structures and social expectations, creating opportunities for lycanthropes to establish new identities and relationships in communities rebuilding after conflict. At the same time, the war's violence and uncertainty have increased suspicions and reduced tolerance for anything perceived as threatening or unusual. The consumption process itself proves nearly as traumatic as the original lycanthropic transformation. Patients must ingest the entire witch head while maintaining human form, allowing the curative essence to spread through their system over several days of intense physical and psychological distress. The cure works by systematically destroying lycanthropic cells throughout the body, replacing supernatural biology with restored human systems. This process causes fever, hallucinations, and extreme pain as the body fights between competing supernatural influences. Success rates for Glenmoral cures vary dramatically based on the strength of the patient's lycanthropic condition and their mental preparation for the ordeal. Newly transformed werewolves have the highest cure rates, as their supernatural biology hasn't had time to fully integrate with their human systems. Ancient werewolves face much lower success rates, as centuries of lycanthropic existence create physical and spiritual changes that resist reversal through any known means. Failed cure attempts result in various unfortunate outcomes depending on when and why the process goes wrong. Patients who consume improperly prepared witch heads may develop hybrid conditions that combine lycanthropic traits with hag-raven characteristics, creating beings that belong fully to neither supernatural category. Those who abandon treatment midway through often find their lycanthropic abilities permanently damaged, leaving them weaker than normal werewolves, but unable to return to full humanity. Understanding the complexities of lycanthropic cures helps explain why most werewolves choose to manage their condition rather than eliminate it entirely. The combination of physical dangers, psychological challenges, social disruption, and uncertain success rates makes cure attempts desperate measures that few lycanthropes pursue unless their supernatural existence becomes completely unbearable. For most werewolves, learning to control and integrate their lycanthropic nature proves more practical than attempting to abandon it entirely. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into Tamriel's darkest secrets. Your support fuels these explorations. What topic should we uncover next? The Elder Scrolls mysteries run deeper than blood.